The deep black of space stretched without end. Stars burned cold and distant, scattered like sparks from an old fire. In that silence, a shape drifted slowly across the void. It was not graceful like alien ships. It was not shining with smooth edges or soft light. It was a human warship, old and heavy, built from thick steel and dark armor. Its surface was marked by scars of battles long past. To the alien eyes watching from their sleek craft, it looked clumsy and primitive, a relic of a lesser species. The aliens came from a proud empire. They had studied hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships. They had seen beauty in design and perfection in technology. When they first detected the human vessel, they laughed. Compared to their advanced science, the warship looked like a brute tool made only for smashing. The aliens believed humans to be reckless, violent, and crude in their creations. That was why this mission was simple. Approach, board, study, and leave with their data. It would be easy, they thought. Too easy. But as their ships closed the distance, something strange began to happen. The human vessel did not answer hails. It did not power up weapons. It drifted in silence, dead as stone. But there was something unsettling in its presence. Its dark hull reflected no light, almost as if it was swallowing the stars around it. The younger alien officers whispered among themselves, uneasy. The elder commander waved a hand to silence them. "It is only metal," he said. Nothing more. A dead machine. Yet the silence pressed harder the closer they came. The alien scanners reached out and touched the hull. Data flowed back. Too much data. Strange signals buried under the metal, almost like whispers. The machines in the alien ship shivered as if something inside the warship was listening. But the commander ignored the warning signs. He gave the order to board. The boarding craft docked with a heavy clang. The sound echoed inside the alien helmets, sharp and final, like a lock closing. The hatch opened. Cold air spilled from the warship, air that had not moved in many years. The first alien stepped through, his boots clanging against the metal floor. The hall was dark, lit only by the pale glow of their suits. The walls were thick, harsh, and scarred. Symbols scratched in human script lined the corridors. The aliens did not understand the words, but they carried weight, like warnings carved by desperate hands. Some of the symbols were smeared, as if drawn with something more than paint. The youngest alien slowed his step, feeling the weight of eyes on him. But there were no eyes, only steel. The group moved deeper. Their scanners showed empty rooms, power lines dead, no movement. But the warship did not feel empty. Every sound they made bounced back louder, like the ship wanted them to know they did not belong here. One alien laughed nervously, tapping a wall with his claw. "Primitive humans," he said. "Look at this crude work. Thick armor, no beauty. Only fear made this." His voice echoed far, too far. Another alien whispered, "If it is so weak, then why do I feel it is hunting us?" They reached the main corridor. The floor was blackened with old burns, as if flames had swept through long ago. Doors hung broken, but none led anywhere safe. Every path bent deeper into shadow. The aliens stopped. They felt a vibration beneath their feet, faint but steady. A slow thump, heavy, repeating. One alien froze. "That sound? It is like a heartbeat." The commander shook his head. "Nonsense. It is only metal shifting. Stay calm." But even his voice trembled as the sound grew stronger, like something under the ship's skin was waking. Then the lights flickered, just once like a blink, then again. The shadows moved with the glow, stretching and twisting. The warship systems, dead for years, seemed to stir as if remembering something. The aliens looked at one another in silence, their breaths loud inside their helmets. One alien raised his scanner. Strange signals filled the air now, short, sharp bursts that did not match any known code. The machine hissed and sparked in his hand. He dropped it in fear. The ship seemed to laugh with the static. The commander ordered them forward, though his steps were slower now. "It is still only a machine," he said again, but he no longer believed it. The heartbeat sound was everywhere now, coming from the walls, the floor, the very air. The warship was not dead. It was sleeping, and their presence had stirred it. Behind them, the boarding hatch closed with a heavy slam. None of the aliens touched it. None had given the command. The youngest alien turned back in terror, banging on the sealed door. "We are trapped," he cried. His voice carried through the corridor like a scream in a cave. The commander raised his weapon, pointing it at the darkness ahead. His hand shook. The sound of the heartbeat grew louder, closer, until it felt like it was inside their own chests. The air was heavy now, hard to breathe, as though the ship itself was alive and pressing down on them. And then, from somewhere deep inside the warship, a low, grinding voice spoke. Not from speakers, not from machines, but from the walls themselves. 3 words, cold and final. Target acquired. The aliens froze, their blood turning cold. The human warship had awakened. It was not a relic. It was not dead. It was watching, and it was hungry. The aliens stood frozen in the dim corridor, the cold metal around them pressing in like the walls of a tomb. Their helmets picked up every echo, every hiss of their own breath, and every pounding thump of the ship's strange heartbeat. The words they had just heard, target acquired, hung heavy in their minds. None of them dared to move. None of them wanted to be the first to test if the voice had been real. The commander's hand shook as he raised his weapon, but his pride held him still. "Stay calm," he said, his voice thin. "It is only a recording. Humans left this warship adrift long ago. There is no life here." His words sounded hollow, and the others could hear the tremor beneath them. The youngest alien, trembling, whispered, "If no life is here, then who just spoke to us?" The corridor lights flickered again, glowing pale for a moment before fading. When they lit, the walls looked different. Symbols that had seemed harmless before now appeared jagged, sharp, like claws scratched into steel. The aliens moved forward slowly, their boots ringing against the floor, each step louder than the last. The warship's silence felt alive, as though the shadows themselves listened. They entered a chamber that had once been a hangar. The vast room stretched far, its roof lost in darkness. Rusted chains hung from above, swaying though there was no wind. Old fighters sat broken on the deck, their wings torn, their bodies scorched. The aliens spread out, scanning. Every reading was the same, powerless, dead metal. But their senses told them otherwise. They felt eyes unseen but watching. One alien moved close to a wrecked fighter and touched the blackened hull. His scanner sparked violently, hissing with static, and then died. The fighter's cockpit glowed faintly for a moment, showing the shape of a human figure slumped inside. The alien stumbled back in horror. When the glow faded, the cockpit was empty. His companions mocked him, but none of them wanted to check again. The commander gave a sharp order. "Collect samples. Study the metal. Record everything. We will prove this primitive craft is nothing more than rust." His voice was firm, but his eyes darted to the shadows. The aliens obeyed, though unease slowed their movements. One scraped the hull with his claw, trying to peel off a fragment. The moment the shard fell to the ground, the heartbeat sound quickened. The lights above flared. From the far wall, a loud grinding began. A door they had not noticed opened by itself, screeching as though it had not moved in centuries. Beyond it stretched another corridor, glowing faintly red. No one had given the order. No one wanted to go inside. Yet the warship seemed to invite them forward. Reluctantly, the commander stepped first, pride dragging him deeper. The others followed. The red glow came not from lights but from scars in the walls, lines where molten heat had once burned through. It gave the corridor the look of veins filled with fire. The heartbeat was louder here, matching the rhythm of their own pulse. The younger alien pressed his claw to the wall and flinched. The steel was warm. They reached what looked like the ship's command deck. But this was not like the bridges of their own sleek vessels. It was brutal, heavy, made for war alone. Thick chairs faced thick consoles, each covered in buttons, levers, and scratched screens. Human helmets rested on the floor, empty but still whole. The air smelled faintly of smoke, though no fire burned. As they entered, the consoles flickered alive one by one. Green lights flashed. Old displays lit up with static and then formed shapes. Battle recordings appeared. The aliens froze as they saw images of humans, small compared to their kind, fragile compared to most species. Yet in the battles shown, humans commanded the warship like predators. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. The recordings showed fleets of alien craft shattered, worlds defended with fire and blood. The aliens stared at the images, disturbed. One muttered, "How could such a weak race build this?" Another answered, "Perhaps they are not weak." The commander snapped, "Enough! These are only old victories. The humans are nothing compared to us." Yet even as he spoke, his hands trembled. Then the voice returned, cold, heavy, without emotion. Intruders detected, protocol engaged. The command deck sealed itself. Doors slammed shut with booming echoes. The aliens rushed to them, clawing, pounding, but the steel did not yield. Consoles flashed red. The ship's system spoke again. Testing sequence initiated. Observation in progress. The aliens turned their weapons on the walls, firing bursts of energy. The blasts scarred the steel, but the ship groaned back as though in anger. The floor shook beneath them. From vents above, a thick mist poured down, chilling their bodies even through their suits. Their scanners lit with strange readings. The warship was not defending itself, it was studying them. Measuring their fear, recording their responses. Panic spread. One alien screamed, firing wildly at the consoles. Sparks flew, but the images of humans on the screens only grew brighter. Soldiers shouting, ships exploding, the endless fury of war. The ship seemed to feed on the chaos, its heartbeat now thunderous. The youngest alien fell to his knees, his voice shaking. It is alive. The warship is alive. We should not be here. The commander barked at him to rise, but his own voice cracked. He knew the truth now. This was no dead relic. It was not a machine abandoned. This was a predator forged in human hands, built to fight, built to kill, built to survive. The lights dimmed suddenly. The voice whispered low, almost mocking. Welcome, subjects. You wish to study now. You are the study. The chamber went black. The only sound left was the pounding heartbeat of the warship, louder than ever, and the quickening breaths of trapped aliens who realized they had made the worst mistake of their lives. The darkness inside the human warship pressed against the aliens like a living weight. Their helmet lamps cut narrow paths through the thick mist, but every beam seemed swallowed by the black steel around them. The consoles on the command deck were dead again, lifeless and silent as though they had never shown images of war. Yet the aliens could still hear the heartbeat. Slow, steady, relentless. It was not the heartbeat of any creature they knew. It was deeper, metallic, as if the warship itself was alive. The commander gripped his weapon tighter, claws trembling against the trigger. His pride screamed for him to stay strong, but his instincts whispered the truth. They had awakened something that should never have been touched. Form up, he ordered, though his voice cracked. The others moved closer, their eyes wide. They were hunters in their own empire, feared across worlds, but here they felt like prey. A sudden hiss came from the vents above. The mist shifted, thickening, curling around their bodies. Strange shapes flickered inside it, human shapes, walking like ghosts. One alien fired in panic. The blast cut through the mist but hit nothing. The shapes vanished, then reappeared behind them closer. The youngest alien cried out, "They are watching us."
"They are everywhere!"
His words echoed like a child's wail in a grave. The commander struck him across the faceplate. Silence. They are illusions. Tricks of light. But even as he spoke, one of the ghostly figures turned its head slowly toward him. Its helmet was cracked, its face shadowed, but its eyes glowed faint blue. The commander froze. The figure raised a finger and pointed at him, and the warship's heartbeat quickened in answer. Then the lights exploded to life. Not soft lights like alien ships, but harsh white beams that burned the eyes. The command deck shook as heavy machinery came alive. Massive turrets unfolded from the ceiling, their barrels locking onto the aliens with mechanical growls. Armor plates slid across the walls, sealing them tighter inside. The voice returned, louder now, filling every corner of the chamber. Observation begins. Defense systems ready. The aliens opened fire in every direction. Energy blasts struck the walls, leaving glowing scars, but the ship did not weaken. It seemed to roar with each strike, its heartbeat racing. The turrets did not fire yet. They only followed, tracking every movement, studying. The aliens felt like insects beneath the gaze of a predator, waiting for the right moment to strike. One alien technician scrambled to the consoles, desperate. His claws flew across the buttons, trying to override the systems. The screens flickered alive, but instead of commands, they showed human faces. Hard, scarred, filled with fury. One face leaned close, staring straight through the screen into the alien's eyes. It whispered words the translator could not fully capture, but the meaning was clear. "We see you." The technician screamed and tore off his visor, as though he could escape the gaze. He collapsed, shaking. The commander forced himself forward, firing his weapon at the nearest turret. The blast hit, sending sparks flying, but the turret did not fall. Instead, it rotated slowly, lowering until its barrel hovered inches from his chest. The voice spoke again, calm and cold. Response measured. Insufficient. The turret withdrew without firing, as if disappointed. The commander felt his pride shatter. He realized the warship was not only testing their weapons, it was testing their fear. The youngest alien broke. He turned and ran for the sealed door, pounding with his fists, screaming to be let out. The walls around him rippled with faint light. Then, with a sound like tearing metal, the floor beneath him opened. He plunged into darkness, his cries echoing until they were cut off by a sickening thud. The floor sealed again, smooth and perfect, as though nothing had happened. The others froze in terror. None spoke. None dared move. The warship's heartbeat slowed once more, steady and calm, like a beast satisfied with its first meal. The commander swallowed his fear and tried to think. "We must reach the power core," he said. "If we disable it, the ship will die." He knew it was a lie, but lies were all he had left to keep his crew from collapsing. They nodded, too frightened to argue. A new corridor opened at the far wall, lights flickering like a trail of blood leading deeper. None of the aliens wanted to follow, yet they had no choice. The warship guided them, herding them like cattle to slaughter. As they marched, the walls whispered with static, almost forming words. Snatches of human voices bled through the noise, battle cries, screams, laughter. The aliens understood none of it, yet the meaning was clear. Humans had poured their rage into this ship. It carried their spirit. The corridor bent downward into the ship's heart. Strange machinery pulsed in the walls, glowing faint red. It looked less like technology and more like veins carrying fire. The aliens felt heat on their armor, felt their hearts pounding in rhythm with the warships. They were no longer explorers. They were prisoners marching into judgment. At last they reached a vast chamber. In its center stood a towering engine, black and alive with energy. It beat like a massive heart, each pulse shaking the floor. Around it were rows of human skeletons still strapped to chairs, their bones fused into the metal. As though they had chosen to die with their ship, the aliens recoiled in horror. Then the voice came again, deeper, louder than before. "This is humanity. This is war. You wanted knowledge. Now you will know." The engine flared, flooding the chamber with white light. The aliens dropped to the ground, shielding their eyes, their screams lost in the roar. And in that blinding moment, each of them understood the truth. This was not a simple warship. This was a weapon built from fury, bound to the will of its fallen crew, and it was awake. The commander felt terror tear through him. He wished for the first time in his life that his empire had never chosen to study humans, because now the humans were studying them, and the test had only just begun. The chamber around the aliens shook with the roar of the engine. The white light faded slowly, leaving only the glow of the red veins that ran through the walls like burning rivers. The air was heavy, so thick it felt alive, pressing against their suits. The commander forced himself to stand, though his knees trembled. His crew rose with him, silent, their eyes wide with fear. The warship's voice echoed again, calm and merciless. "Testing continues. Movement required." Before the commander could speak, the floor beneath them shifted. Plates of metal slid apart and rearranged themselves with a grinding scream. The chamber's shape twisted. Doors opened, then vanished. New walls rose, cutting off paths. In moments, the room was gone, replaced by a maze of corridors stretching in every direction. The aliens turned in panic, weapons raised. None of the passages were familiar. The ship had trapped them inside a shifting labyrinth. The youngest survivor whispered, "It's alive. It's toying with us." His words cracked with terror. Another hissed back, "No ship should be able to do this." But even as they argued, the corridor shifted again, walls sliding like puzzle pieces, sealing one path, opening another. It was a cage, a trap that could change shape at will. The commander clenched his jaw. "Stay close. Do not separate. If we move together, we survive." It was a lie, and he knew it. The ship was not guiding them toward escape. It was hurting them deeper. Still, his crew followed because fear left them no other choice. They walked, boots clanging against steel that echoed endlessly. The heartbeat followed, steady, always in the walls and the floor in their chests. Sometimes the sound sped up when they hesitated, as if urging them forward. Other times it slowed, patient, as though the ship enjoyed their fear. At one junction, the corridor split in three. The commander chose the center path. The walls closed instantly, sealing two of his crew inside the other tunnels. Their screams rose, claws pounding against the steel. The commander shouted orders, but the walls would not open. Then came silence, sudden, sharp. When the walls slid back, the tunnels were empty. No bodies, no blood. Nothing remained of them at all. The survivors backed away in terror. "It takes them," one whispered. "It takes them like prey." The commander forced them onward, though dread coiled in his chest. Every corridor they walked seemed to tilt downward, pulling them deeper into the ship's core. Then they heard the whispers. At first soft, almost like static, but as they walked, the voices grew clearer. Human voices, harsh, angry, commanding. They echoed in languages the aliens did not fully understand, but the meaning carried anyway. Advance, attack, destroy. The walls replayed the rage of long-dead soldiers, a memory of endless war. The aliens covered their ears, but the voices lived in their helmets, in their very minds. One alien broke down, shrieking. He threw his weapon aside and clawed at his helmet, trying to rip it off. "Make it stop!" "The humans are in my head," he screamed. His voice dissolved into wild laughter before the floor beneath him split open. He dropped into darkness, swallowed whole, his laughter cut off like a snuffed flame. The others recoiled, horrified. The corridors twisted again, forcing the survivors into a narrow passage lit by faint blue light. The glow came from panels in the walls showing shifting images. Alien ships burning, fleets torn apart, soldiers screaming as human warships crushed them. The survivors stared in shock. These were not their own memories, yet the ship forced them to see, to feel. The panels showed the fall of species across the galaxy, each destroyed when they underestimated humans. One alien staggered back, his voice shaking. "They are not weak. They never were. They are monsters." The commander gritted his teeth, but deep inside he knew it was true. The corridor ended in a vast chamber unlike the others. It was round, with walls curving high above into shadow. At its center stood a massive machine shaped like a black sphere, humming with power. Strange symbols ran across its surface, human letters glowing faintly. The heartbeat pulsed from it louder than ever, vibrating through their bones. The voice filled the chamber again, no longer calm but fierce. "Combat trial begins." Panels slid open in the walls and machines emerged. Not sleek alien drones, but heavy, brutal constructs shaped like human soldiers armored in steel. Their eyes glowed red. Weapons unfolded from their arms. The aliens raised their guns in terror. The first volley struck. Energy blasts lit the chamber, shaking the walls. The human machines advanced without pause, their armor absorbing shot after shot. One alien fell, screaming, his body torn apart by the return fire. Another was slammed against the wall by a massive steel fist, his bones shattering. The survivors fired desperately, but for every machine they destroyed, more stepped out of the walls. The commander shouted orders, voice hoarse. "Aim for the joints. The head, break them apart." His soldiers obeyed, their fire growing frantic. Sparks flew. Metal cracked. A few machines fell, but the survivors were outnumbered. The warship was testing them, pushing them, measuring their strength. The youngest alien fired until his weapon overheated, smoke rising from the barrel. He screamed in despair. "We cannot win. This is not a test, it is execution." He turned to flee, but the corridor behind them sealed shut. There was no way out. The commander fought with every shred of will left in him. He slammed his weapon into a machine's head, driving the barrel through its glowing eyes. The machine collapsed, sparks bursting from its chest. For a moment he felt victory. But then the voice spoke, soft and cruel. Result? Inadequate. The remaining machines froze. The survivors held their breath, trembling. Then the machines withdrew into the walls, vanishing as quickly as they had come. The chamber was silent once more. Only the heartbeat remained. The commander fell to his knees, his body shaking. His crew looked at him with hollow eyes. They were broken, weapons nearly useless, courage nearly gone. The warship had spared them, but not out of mercy. It wanted them alive, because the trap was not meant to kill them quickly. It was meant to break them slowly. The walls shifted again, opening a new path into deeper darkness. The voice gave its final command for the moment, cold and final. Proceed. The survivors obeyed because they had no choice. And as they marched into the unknown, they realized the truth. The human warship was not only a prison, it was a predator. And it was enjoying the hunt. The corridors swallowed them again. The survivors moved slowly, their weapons heavy in their hands, their minds even heavier. The trap chamber was behind them, but its echo followed. The sound of machines marching, the screams of their lost crew. The walls pulsed faint red with every beat of the warship's heart. It was not guiding them to freedom. It was dragging them deeper, step by step, into its memory. The youngest survivor staggered as he walked. His eyes were wide, staring at things the others could not see. He whispered to himself over and over. They were watching us. The humans were watching us. His words were broken, like a song stuck in his mind. The commander tried to silence him, but no order could erase what the ship had carved into their thoughts. The corridor opened into a vast, dome-shaped hall. It was darker than the others, silent except for the steady thrum of the heart engine far below. The air shimmered faintly as though heavy with smoke. Then the walls came alive. Images burst to life across the curved steel, holograms of battles playing in every direction. Not illusions of ghosts this time, but sharp, brutal recordings. The aliens froze as they watched entire fleets burn. Ships larger than cities shattered under the fire of human warships. Planets lit up with explosions. The sky filled with fire. The recordings were not quiet. The walls shook with the thunder of cannons. Human voices shouted, fierce and unbroken. Orders barked with authority. Screams of pain. Laughter in the middle of chaos. The aliens covered their ears, but the sound was inside their heads. The warship forced them to listen. One hologram filled the floor before them, showing a human ship surrounded by enemies. The humans did not flee. They did not surrender. They fought until every gun was gone, then rammed their burning vessel into the enemy's flagship. The explosion tore through space like a sun. The humans died, but they won. The aliens stumbled back in shock. "They are insane," one whispered. "They choose death over defeat." Another shook his head. "No, they choose victory, even if it kills them." The images changed again. The aliens saw smaller battles, on planets, in trenches inside burning cities. Humans fought with bare hands, with knives, with weapons torn from their enemies. They fought when wounded, when outnumbered, when hopeless. They fought with rage that did not die until they did. The youngest alien fell to his knees, covering his eyes. "Stop, please stop." "I cannot watch." But the warship did not stop. The holograms grew brighter, louder, closer. The walls seemed to lean in, forcing the survivors to see every moment. Then the voice came again, not calm this time, but fierce, filled with pride. "These are the memories of war. Humanity remembers. Humanity learns. Humanity endures." The commander clenched his jaw, but his chest was tight. For the first time in his life, he felt respect for an enemy. Fear, yes, but also respect. He whispered, almost to himself, "They are not weak." They never were. The holograms shifted once more. This time they showed the inside of the very warship the aliens now walked. They saw the crew alive, human soldiers moving with discipline, faces grim, eyes burning with determination. They watched as the ship went into its final battle. Alien fleets surrounded it. Fire tore across its hull. One by one, systems failed, but the humans fought on. Even as the ship cracked, even as fires raged inside, they kept firing, kept killing, kept winning. Then came the moment of silence. The humans gathered in the command deck, wounded and broken. Their captain spoke words that rang even through the alien translators. "If we fall as fire. Let them learn to fear us." The crew slammed their fists against their chests in unison. The recording ended in blinding light as the warship charged into its last fight. The dome grew quiet. The holograms vanished. The survivors stood in silence, trembling. The heartbeat of the warship was louder now, echoing like thunder in their bones. The youngest alien whispered, "They built this ship with their rage. Their spirits are still here. It will never die." His voice cracked into a sob. The commander stared at the steel floor, his claws curling tight. He hated to admit it, but he knew the truth. The humans had turned their warship into a tomb, a weapon bound to their memory. And now that memory was alive, testing, studying, judging. Suddenly the floor shifted again. Metal plates slid open and pillars rose from below. Each held strange objects, helmets, weapons, banners, all human, all scarred by battle. The aliens approached carefully. One reached to touch a helmet. The moment his claw brushed it, the warship roared with sound. The voice thundered across the dome, shaking the air. "You came to study. Now you will learn." The objects glowed. The aliens were thrown into visions, not with their eyes, but with their minds. They felt the weight of human rage, the fire of human war, the endless will to fight. It was not just shown to them, it was forced into them. They felt what it was like to be human in battle. They felt pain that did not stop, fear that did not weaken, fury that burned hotter than death. The aliens screamed. Some tore at their helmets. Others collapsed, clawing at the floor. The commander fell to one knee, gasping, his chest tight as though flames filled his lungs. He saw flashes of battles he had never fought, victories he had never earned, deaths he had never died. The warship was burning its history into his very soul. Then, as quickly as it began, the visions ended. The hall fell silent again. The heartbeat slowed, steady, patient. The aliens lay on the floor, shaking. The commander rose slowly, though his body shook. He looked at his crew. They were broken, their pride gone, their courage hollow. He could barely speak. "We came to study a warship," he whispered. "But this is no ship. This is a grave that fights." The voice answered him, calm again, but colder than ever. "Correct." The walls shifted, opening another passage into deeper shadow. The survivors stared at it in horror. They knew they had no choice. The warship was not finished with them, and in the silence they realized something terrible. The humans had built this warship not only to destroy their enemies. They had built it to teach. To teach fear. To teach respect. To teach that fighting humans was the greatest mistake any species could make. Now, the aliens understood, and they wished they had never come. The new passage yawned open before them, a long throat of steel glowing faintly with red light. The survivors hesitated at its edge, their claws scraping the floor as though they might anchor themselves against being swallowed. None wanted to step forward, yet the walls behind them began to close. The ship gave them no choice. The commander lifted his weapon, his hand trembling, and stepped into the passage. His soldiers followed, their footsteps hollow, their hearts breaking. The air inside was hotter, thicker, almost alive. The walls pulsed faintly, veins of fire running like blood beneath the steel. The heartbeat was louder now, not steady but uneven, faster, hungrier. The commander felt it in his chest, sinking with his pulse until he could no longer tell which was his own. The warship was breathing through him, controlling his body like a puppet. They reached another chamber, smaller this time, circular and tight, like a cage. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing with a metallic scream. They turned, but there was no way back. The room grew darker until only the red veins glowed. Then the voice came, deeper, heavier than before. "Observation complete. Judgment begins." The floor shook. Panels slid open around the walls and strange devices rose from the ground, tall black pylons with glowing cores. They hummed with energy, the sound sharp enough to pierce the skull. The aliens clutched their helmets, their eyes wide with pain. The humming grew louder, and then the visions began again. But these were not memories of humans. These were reflections of the aliens themselves. Each survivor saw their own battles, their own victories, their own cruelty. They saw their empire crushing weaker races, enslaving them, mocking their weakness. They saw themselves laughing as planets burned. The warship showed them their sins as clearly as it had shown humanity's fury. The youngest alien screamed, "No, this is not real." He clawed at the images, trying to tear them from the air, but they followed him, wrapping around him like chains. The others shouted in fear as the visions showed them things they had long buried: betrayals, murders, choices made in arrogance. The ship forced them to confront everything they were. The voice rumbled, "You study us. We study you. Humanity fights for survival. You fight for conquest. This is the difference." The commander shook with rage and fear. "We are stronger. We are greater than humans. They cannot judge us." His voice cracked into desperation. The warship answered with cold finality. "Strength is not cruelty. Victory is not murder. You fail the test." The pylons flared. Energy surged between them, creating a lattice of burning light that closed around the aliens. One soldier touched the field and was torn apart in a storm of fire, his body vanishing in a scream. The others pulled back, trapped in the shrinking circle. The commander fired his weapon at the pylons, but the blasts dissolved harmlessly. The warship ignored his defiance. It was not interested in his power. It was interested in his fear. The lattice closed tighter, forcing the survivors together. Their breathing grew sharp and frantic. The youngest alien sobbed, clawing at the floor as though he might dig his way out. Then the lattice stopped shrinking. The voice spoke again, low and merciless. "Survival requires more than pride. Show me your will." The lattice opened just enough for a single path to appear, leading deeper into the ship. The survivors hesitated, gasping, broken. The commander pushed them forward, though his own legs trembled. They staggered through the opening. The lattice sealed behind them, cutting off the chamber forever. The corridor ahead was narrow, suffocating. It twisted like the inside of a creature's throat, wet with condensation, glowing faintly with sick light. The heartbeat followed them, faster, heavier, shaking the walls. They stumbled forward until they entered another chamber. This one was vast, cavernous, filled with machines hanging from the ceiling like the ribs of a beast. At the center stood a massive construct, a humanoid figure made of black steel, towering over them. Its chest glowed with a core of white fire. Its arms were weapons, cannons fused into armor. Its head turned slowly toward them, red eyes burning like suns. The aliens froze in horror. One whispered, "It is their god of war." The warship's voice thundered louder than ever. "Combat trial, final stage." The giant moved. Its footsteps boomed, shaking the floor. The survivors opened fire, their weapons blazing. Bolts of energy struck the construct, but it did not slow. It raised one arm and fired. A blast of white heat tore through the chamber, vaporizing one of the aliens instantly. The others scattered, shrieking. The commander ducked behind a machine, firing desperately. Sparks flew, smoke filled the air. The construct advanced, each step echoing like a hammer on their souls. The survivors fought with everything they had, but every strike was meaningless. The warship had built this guardian from more than steel. It was built from the fury of its fallen crew, from the spirit of war itself. The youngest alien cried out, firing wildly until his weapon overheated. He fell to the ground, sobbing. The construct loomed over him, raising its cannon. But instead of killing him, it paused. Its red eyes scanned him, cold and calculating. The voice spoke, weakness detected. Fear confirmed. Subject unworthy, the cannon fired. The youngest alien vanished in fire. The commander howled in rage and despair. He charged the construct, firing until his weapon split apart in his claws. He leapt onto the machine, clawing at its chest, trying to tear open the glowing core. For a moment he thought he saw cracks forming. But then the construct swatted him aside like an insect. He crashed into the floor, armor shattering. The survivors were nearly gone. Only the commander and two others remained. They regrouped, standing together, weapons raised though their arms shook. The construct stopped, its eyes burning brighter. The voice filled the chamber once more, final and merciless. "You came to measure strength. You brought only arrogance. Humanity has no mercy for arrogance." The construct lowered its cannons, but it did not fire. Instead, it stepped back, retreating into the shadows of the chamber. The surviving aliens stared in confusion, gasping, broken. Then the voice whispered, low, cruel, and final, "The reckoning is not your death. The reckoning is knowing you are nothing." The chamber walls shifted again, opening a path. The survivors stumbled forward, too weak to resist. The warship had spared them again, but not out of kindness. It wanted them alive, so they could carry the truth back to their empire. As they limped into the next corridor, the commander realized the true punishment was not destruction. It was shame, and that shame would follow them longer than death ever could. The corridors twisted again, closing behind the survivors as they stumbled forward. Their bodies ached, their armor cracked, their weapons nearly useless. But worse than their wounds was the weight in their minds. Every step echoed with memories the warship had forced into them. The screams of dying humans, the fire of endless battles, the shame of their own cruelty. Only 3 remained now, the commander and 2 soldiers. They did not speak. Their voices felt too small, too weak inside the belly of this beast. The ship had stripped them of pride, stripped them of certainty, stripped them of everything but fear. The new passage was long and narrow, the walls pressing close. The glow of the veins pulsed faintly, slower than before, like a predator resting after a kill. The commander knew the silence was worse than the noise. The ship was waiting, letting them think, letting them imagine what would come next. He clenched his fists. He could not allow his fear to show, even though it crawled in his chest like fire. At last, the passage opened into a wide chamber. It was not like the others. This one looked almost calm. The walls were smooth, the floor level, the air dry. No machines, no weapons, no traps. At the far end, the aliens saw something they had not expected, an open hatch. Beyond it lay the faint outline of their docking craft. One soldier gasped, his voice breaking for the first time in hours. "Escape, it is escape!" The other soldier stumbled forward, nearly dropping his weapon. "We can leave. We can go home." The commander did not move. His eyes narrowed. "No, it is a trick. This ship does not give freedom. It gives lessons." But his soldiers did not listen. Their hope drowned his warning. They ran across the chamber, racing toward the hatch, shouting with desperate joy. The commander watched, his claws tight on his weapon. He wanted to follow, to believe, but his gut screamed against it. His soldiers reached the hatch, their hands outstretched. Then the floor split open. The chamber shook as massive steel jaws erupted from below. The floor became teeth closing like a beast's mouth. The two soldiers vanished in a blink, swallowed whole. Their screams cut off instantly, leaving only silence. The jaws sealed, the floor smooth again as though nothing had happened. The commander stood alone. His chest heaved, his throat dry. He had not moved, and that had saved him. But there was no relief, only deeper fear. The hatch was gone now, replaced by a blank wall of steel. The warship's voice returned, soft but sharp, like a knife against bone. Desperation observed. Instinct recorded. Hope is a weapon. Hope is bait. The commander fell to his knees. His claws scraped the floor, leaving deep grooves. He wanted to scream, but no sound came. The ship was not simply killing his crew. It was feeding on them. Feeding on their fear, their choices, their despair. Every action, every mistake was part of its study. Then from the far wall a new door opened. Beyond it stretched a narrow bridge crossing a black void. The commander rose slowly, his body shaking. He had no choice but to walk forward. The bridge creaked beneath his weight, metal groaning like an old wound. The void below seemed endless, a pit with no bottom. Shapes moved in the darkness, shifting like shadows alive. He forced his eyes ahead, his steps steady, though his heart pounded with every beat of the warships. Halfway across, the lights flickered. The shadows below twisted, forming into human shapes. They climbed the walls of the void, crawling toward the bridge. Their helmets cracked, their faces hidden, their eyes glowing faint blue. They whispered in voices that echoed inside his skull. Why do you run? Why do you fear? Why do you think you will leave? The commander fired at them, energy bolts tearing into the void. The shadows vanished, then reformed closer, stronger. They reached for him with pale hands, their touch burning even through his armor. He roared, slashing with his claws, but they passed through nothing. His weapon grew hot, useless in his grip. He staggered across the bridge, each step heavier than the last. The shadows clung to him, their whispers digging into his mind. You cannot escape. None escape. You are ours now. At last he stumbled through the far door, collapsing onto the steel floor. The shadows vanished, the whispers gone. He gasped for air, his chest aching. He was alone now, truly alone. The corridor ahead was short, ending in another hatch. This one looked real. Its surface was scarred, marked by claw and fire. Beyond it, faint light flickered. The stars, the void of space, freedom. The commander rose, staggering forward. He pressed his claws against the hatch, forcing it open with every ounce of strength. Cold air rushed in. He saw space beyond, saw the faint outline of an escape pod waiting. His body shook with disbelief. Could it be real? Could the warship finally be letting him go? Then the voice spoke again, softer than ever, almost gentle. Escape is permitted. Survival. Unlikely. The commander froze. The pod waited. Freedom waited. But the words carved into his mind like knives. Survival unlikely. He stared at the pod, his claws trembling. He knew the truth. The warship was not giving him freedom. It was sending him back, sending him to carry the story, sending him as a warning. He stepped into the pod, collapsing into the seat. The hatch closed. The pod launched, tearing away from the warship's belly. For the first time, silence filled his ears. No heartbeat. No whispers. Only the vast emptiness of space. He turned, looking back. The warship floated in the darkness, silent and still, its scars glowing faint red. It looked dead again, harmless. A drifting relic. But he knew better. He knew the truth. The beast was only resting, waiting for the next intruder, the next fool. The commander buried his face in his claws. His crew was gone, consumed. His pride was shattered, and he understood now why the warship had spared him. It wanted him to speak. It wanted him to carry its legend. The pod drifted into the void, carrying a single broken survivor. Behind him, the human warship slept once more, its heartbeat fading into silence. But it was not dead. It would never die. The escape pod drifted silently through the endless dark. The stars outside were cold, distant, and indifferent. Inside the small capsule, the alien commander sat slumped in his seat, his claws trembling against the restraints. His body was battered, but his spirit was worse, shattered into fragments that could never be whole again. The warship was gone from view, swallowed by shadow, but its presence clung to him like a poison. Even in silence, he could still feel its heartbeat in his chest, echoing faintly as though it had imprinted itself upon him forever. For hours, he said nothing. His mind spun with visions, the ghosts, the machines, the endless fury of humanity. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the humans who had crewed that ship. Their defiance, their pride, their final vow to burn like fire rather than bow to defeat. He opened his eyes quickly, afraid to see more. But the memories followed him even into the waking world. The pod's navigation system hummed weakly. It charted a course back toward the Empire, broadcasting his survival. The commander felt no triumph. He felt only shame. He was the last of his team. Not because he was the strongest, but because the warship had allowed him to live. He knew it was no mercy. It was designed. Days later, the pod was recovered. Alien vessels surrounded it, their sleek hulls gleaming with confidence. Soldiers pulled the commander out, staring at him in shock. Their proud leader, once unshakable, now stumbled like a broken husk. His armor was cracked, his eyes hollow, his voice little more than a whisper. They carried him to the high chamber of the Empire, where rulers and generals waited. They demanded answers. What happened? Where is your crew? Did you study the human relic? Did you bring us its secrets? The commander lifted his head slowly. His throat was dry, his body weak, but his words came sharp, edged with fear that could not be hidden. We found the warship. We entered it. We thought it was dead. The chamber grew silent. He swallowed, his claws digging into the table. It was not dead. It was waiting. It was alive, the generals scoffed. Some laughed. One leaned forward with narrowed eyes. Alive, it is only steel. A machine. The commander slammed a claw against the table, his voice cracking into a roar. No, you do not understand. It remembers. It thinks. It studies. It fights as though its crew never left. It is not a machine. It is their spirit made into steel. A tomb that breathes. A predator that waits. The chamber quieted again. Uneasy whispers spread. The rulers pressed him for more. What did you see? What did it do? He closed his eyes, and for a long moment he could not speak. Then, with a shudder, he told them everything. The ghosts in the mist. The shifting labyrinth. The memories of human battles carved into his mind. The machines of war, testing and breaking them. The giant construct, the final trial. His soldiers screaming one by one, consumed by the ship. When he finished, the chamber was silent. No one moved. Finally, one ruler whispered, "And why did it let you live?" The commander opened his eyes, staring at them with hollow despair. Because it wanted me to tell you. Because it wanted you to know. His voice dropped lower, trembling. Do not study the humans. Do not provoke them. Do not ever believe they are weak. Their ships are monsters. Their will is fire. They will fight until the stars burn out, and even in death they will not stop. The rulers shifted uncomfortably. Some muttered in disbelief. One general slammed his fist down. Nonsense! They are primitive. Their technology is crude. They are nothing compared to us. The commander rose unsteadily, his broken armor scraping the floor. His eyes burned now, filled with a terrible certainty. You are fools. We thought the same, and we were devoured. That ship was only one vessel lost in the dark. Imagine what waits in the fleets they still command. Imagine what will happen if we awaken more of them. His voice cracked, almost a plea. Do not send ships to study. Do not send fleets to conquer. If you value your lives, if you value this empire, stay away. Fear them. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some argued he was mad. Others whispered that his words rang true. Fear rippled through the council like a shadow, unspoken but heavy. The commander did not wait for them to decide. He turned and walked out, his steps slow, his body broken. He had carried the warning as the warship intended. His task was done. Outside, he looked up at the stars. They glittered coldly, endless and eternal. Somewhere out there, the human warship drifted once more, silent and still, waiting for the next curious soul. He felt its gaze even across the void, as though it was listening, watching. He whispered to the night, his voice raw. We should have left you alone. In the Empire's archives, his testimony was sealed. Some called it madness. Some called it prophecy. But among the soldiers who whispered in the barracks, it became something else. A legend. The legend of the human warship that could never die. The tomb that hunted. The ghost of humanity's fury. And in the shadows of their fear, one truth took root. They had wanted to study a human warship. Now they regretted ever choosing it.